It's Thursday, November 20th, 2014, and you're listening to SYN Boldly, the podcast, the Sign Your Name Project. I'm your host, Trey Comstock, and back as ever this week is Stephen Doss.
Yay!
So on this week, we're kind of going to evenly split between literally late-breaking news that happened today. We are like a real news show. And then a broader discussion on a relatively strange topic that actually interfaces with the end times.
Boy, I love the end times.
But we'll start with late-breaking news on immigration in the news. So what exactly did Barack Obama do today?
Obama! Liberals!
I love I'm doing El Rushbo. Yeah, this is great.
Doing my Mark Levin.
An El Rushbo.
Republic!
Well,
Shut
we're
down
not.
the government!
Well,
That's,
yes, but no. I mean,
is that what we need to do to get ratings?
Well, I don't know. I think I can very clearly say that Obama has somewhat subverted the democratic process.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Anyway, so, as was recently announced this evening at around 8 o'clock, Barack Obama has basically, how can I put this? What he's done is he has given an executive order, which is well within the rights of the powers of the executive branch, which basically says that for 5 million undocumented aliens,
individuals, aliens is the.
I'm gonna say what they really are. They're illegals. That's what they are.
They're
illegals.
No, I mean, so as we talked about on our immigration episode, which I'm going to post next to this episode because it's actually going to be really comprehensive. So, name, as Kathleen will ever remind us, words matter.
Yes, they do. So.
And how you describe people really matters and really says a lot about how you think of them. So we've invented this awkward grammatical construction of illegal, which doesn't really hold together grammatically. How do you be an illegal person? How is a person illegal? A drug can be illegal. An action can be illegal. How can a human being be illegal? They are people who are in this country without proper documentation. So that is what they are.
Illegal. That's how they are, because America.
No, because generally illegal would refer to a criminal process, right? That, you have done something that is against the law, which they have done something that's against the law, but the kind of court that they would be brought up in is not a criminal court. We have found other fascinating ways to make other things that they do subsequent to that actually illegal in a criminal sense. This is just administrative law, and all they should do is get deported. Instead, we've created a massive prison industrial complex around keeping them here for years, but in prisons, privately run prisons by billion-dollar corporations.
Yep.
Because we increasingly make stuff they need to do, like work, a criminal offense. Because being here without documentation in and of itself is not a criminal offense. It's administrative law. It's just like hey, don't do that, you should probably leave. And that's it. And that in and of itself is bad because then we build borders that deliberately, kills thousands of people.
Right.
By forcing them into the high desert, which ain't no joke. In the Hebrews wandering the wilderness kind of way. Mountains, desert, spiky plants, no water, tremendous heat or tremendous cold. It's real bad. So illegal is really it's offensive and dehumanizing for one.
Right. It says your personhood is wrong, against the law. The fact that you exist is not allowed in this country.
Well, the sum total of your identity is the fact that you don't have a piece of paper.
Exactly.
This is, you and I could also commit the same offense that they have if we enter the country anywhere without and didn't go through a passport check. Like, we would commit the same offense. We wouldn't get deported. We might get fined or a slap on the wrist or like a, hey, don't do that again.
Yeah, we would get caught. They would see us. Hopefully we'd have some ID on us.
Well, we're white, so they wouldn't really worry about it. I mean, this is racism, right? Right. I mean, like...
There's a reason it's called privilege.
Right. Anyways, what did Obama do? Sorry,
but what he did,
what did Obama do?
Was he said this executive order that basically allows 5 million undocumented persons to stay in this country, and basically it's a pathway to citizenship. They don't have to worry about getting, taken. They don't have to worry about getting deported. Yeah. They don't have to worry about, getting arrested, and they just can live like they normally do without fear. Which is a good thing.
I mean, on the surface of it, it is. Now, there's some details I want to see if you can answer.
Okay.
Does this allow for re-entry? Can they come in and go out?
I don't think so. Let me go to the...
So, and...
It's basically... It does involve a criminal...
background check, sure, because that's a shield against the Republicans. You're keeping felons. Well, you worked really hard to make them felons, for one, so good job there. But no, I kind of get why that's there. That's a shield to make this slightly more politically palatable. So he can make the statement, which he did. Deport felons, not families.
Yeah, basically that's what it is. It's like if your background check comes back clean, you're gold, pony boy.
So what does that actually mean? You mentioned pathway to citizenship. Can you clarify that at all?
Let me check.
Because I mean, some of what I'm getting at is citizenship isn't necessarily what they actually want. From the conversations that I've had with folks who've made the crossing, it's much more about like, come here, work for a while, make money, go home, live with your family, in your community.
There was one of my professors hired back at the good old Troy University in Troy, Alabama, hired some people to work on his what was it? He was trying to remove a tree. From his yard. And, that costs a lot of money to hire someone who's bonded. And he's like, I just cut it down and get it out. And everyone got $100. But he was talking to, the people he hired. And they're like, as soon as I make $10,000 in cash, I'm going home. Yeah. Because I could retire on that where I live.
Right. So you look at it, they don't, generally speaking, from the folks I've talked to and the research I did, I spent a whole semester like digging into this issue, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the goal is not citizenship. We think it is, right? We, white Americans think it is. Because who wouldn't want to be citizens of these United States? Well, it's a functionally broken government with terrible health care. So, I wouldn't want to stay. If I had it's not true. I could emigrate if I so chose, and I don't. But my point is like, what they don't, this is not the land of opportunity where they want to settle down. This is a land of opportunity where they want to work for a while because we have jobs that are available to them, and that pay all right in comparison to the jobs that they would have. And then they want to go home and not stay because they want to go back to their families and go back to their communities and be able to buy their mom a new couch and put their kids through school. And these are wonderful ideas. Absolutely the American dream happening in Mexico, or Guatemala, or Honduras, or wherever, right?
Yeah.
So I like this idea of ending that constant threat of ICE, of La Migra, showing up and breaking up families, for kids who are citizens and parents who are not, all these, there are some definite positives here.
And this executive order is specifically for the people who are parents of U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents.
Okay.
So the Republicans were correct. They just came here for anchor babies.
Right.
Or at least that's the thing that they're going to say.
Sure. Because life doesn't happen. People... There is this myth of, like, strategic children.
Yeah.
It's the same myth as the welfare queens, right? That people are literally having children for very
financial gain.
For financial gain. This is like getting married for tax purposes. I mean, it works. Trust me. My tax rate went down. I'm sure yours did too. But that's not why you do these major life events. There's like some weird like rational actor thinking involved in that I just don't think is real. I do not think it's like, Jose, we need to go to America now so that the child can be born. We will, no.
We're going to risk our lives and the lives of our unborn child to cross the border illegally.
And then try to raise that child away from our support structure. And that sounds like a really good idea, right? Right. No, like, I don't... Look, okay. So, yes, on paper, there were some famous, very infamous, very few cases of welfare queens, right?
Yeah.
Like, one. And so, but this is like the Gamergate logic of, like, one infraction proves massive conspiracy. I am sure that it has happened. They were like, let's have the kid in the U.S. so that it becomes what you called an anchor baby. But I don't actually think that's the norm because, again, the goal is not to stay. Yeah. Staying is a weird byproduct of how hard it is to get back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I drove through the Latino area of Atlanta along Beaufort Highway, and I'm always struck by the number of Western Union signs that you see. You don't see Western Union signs anywhere else, but you do in Latino communities. Because you want to know what they're doing? They're sending the money back.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is all about. This is all about working and going home. Because it's like expats. Like when I went to Belgium, okay? So when I was a kid, my family went to Belgium. We went there for 3 years. My dad did a job. That job ended. We returned to the United States. Right? Same idea. Perfectly normal when I do it in Europe. There's lots of visa requirements. Europe's complicated, but it's a perfectly normal thing. We view it as this sinister takeover of America when people directly south of us, who arguably probably belong living in the American Southwest anyways, do it. And we create up like a death gauntlet of the Devil's Highway to funnel them through to prevent them from coming here.
Right, but okay, are you ready for, again, Devil's Advocate? I hate playing Devil's Advocate.
I know, but let's do this.
Well, we have to. All right, but you and your family legally went through the process. They have not.
There isn't a pathway. I had a multi-million-dollar corporation backing my process. There is a pathway now. There was not up until this move by Obama. There wasn't a real pathway for what, and there still isn't a pathway for what they actually want, which is just the ability to leave and re-enter for a set period of years, and then go home again. Be able to go home for major life events, the quinceañera of your niece, and the baptism of your nephew, and the death of your great uncle Jose. Everyone's Jose today. Go to the graduation of Juan Carlos, or whoever.
Juan Jose.
Juan Jose.
We gotta go there.
That's not a good name,
goodness.
Juan Jose. I'm sorry if there's anyone listening named Juan Jose. That's an unfortunate smush there.
Oh my
so
goodness.
So they can go back for life, right? In the same way that we went back every summer when we lived in Belgium, so that we could go to vacation Bible school at our home church and stuff like that. Like that same idea, so that life can keep happening, and then when they've earned enough money, they can go back. So they're just, your devil's advocate point doesn't really hold up because there wasn't really a pathway. The pathway was either be it an asylum seeker, which is still a terrible process, or hope you don't get busted by ICE. And eventually just kind of blend anonymously into large amorphous urban areas like Houston or San Antonio or Phoenix or San Diego or Los Angeles. or now at this point, even Atlanta. That was your real hope, is just to kind of be able to live anonymously and not draw too much attention.
Right.
And don't go to Alabama, because they're crazy about this kind of stuff.
Yes, they are. Oh, Alabama.
So, yeah, you're right. They didn't go through a process. We also didn't present them with a workable process, given that we clearly have a need for the labor. Right? If there wasn't a need for the labor, created mostly by NAFTA, they wouldn't be coming. These are not dumb people. Many of these people are really smart tradespeople. They come because they know they can make a living. Now, you can talk about stealing our jobs. There's no empirical proof that that's actually true. I want to reiterate this. I can't reiterate this point enough. There's no empirical truth behind the argument of they're taking our jobs.
Right.
When all of the undocumented folks were basically run out of Alabama, the unemployment rate did not change. It didn't change. So
no one took those jobs, because what should have happened if this was the if this was true is that the undocumented workers who weren't part of the jobs report, the unemployment rate should have went down dramatically if that was the case.
And it didn't. Unchanged. Here's the other thing. It's really just a way of turning what is a diplomatic annoyance into a racist crisis. Right? So there's this crisis of immigration. They're either committing crimes, they're just stealing and gangs and drugs, right? Yes, all of them. All 5 million of them, or 10 million of them, whatever the number is, drugs. No.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some drug activity on the border, yes. There's actually a drug war going on the border, as it turns out. But most of the folks who are coming to work on construction sites in Houston are not running drugs, okay? So that's one way to turn it into a racist crisis. The other way is they're stealing something that's yours.
Yeah.
Even though they're not. A, it's not yours. B, they're not stealing it. If it was yours, you'd be doing it. In this economy, you'd be doing it. And you're not. So that tells you something. We have a market for this labor. They seem very willing to provide this labor. Why don't we just create a pathway for them to create a supply of this labor? Because then you can't hide a failing economy. You can, let me rephrase that. You can blame a failing economy on immigrants who have nothing to do with it, rather than take ownership that the economy is just messed up because of actions that we did. Specifically, the Republicans did. But that we did, right? We, the people who are documented and here and citizens, we did that. The immigrants did not create this bad economy. They're not feeding this bad economy. If anything, they're helping with the recovery of this economy. Because they come in and they still spend money here. And they're paying taxes and not reaping any benefits. Because they pay sales tax, right? And they pay, depending on their job, they may even have things pulled out for Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah.
Right? So again, they're helping our economy.
Yeah.
But we found a way to blame a bad economy on scary people who don't look like us. And that's real pernicious. Like, real pernicious.
You always want to blame the other when it's something that you may have brought upon yourself.
Right.
Because it's so much easier to not have to take the blame for it.
So speaking of drastic othering, that brings us to this week's discussion. Such a soothing sound effect. So this is my storied intro, and I'm not entirely sure how to encapsulate this topic. Only to say that the Temple Mount in Jerusalem is becoming increasingly a source of conflict. Now, of course, Jerusalem and the entire region of the West Bank has been a source of some controversy for decades, arguably.
Well, let's be honest, for millennia.
For a millennia. I mean, at least since 1948, but we can trace this all the way back to the Jewish War in 70 AD if we really wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was against Rome, but you get what I mean. So, traditionally, since, kind of middle of the last century, the top of the Temple Mount belonged to the Muslims. There's the Dome of the Rock, where the belief is that that's where Muhammad ascended into heaven. And then there's the Western Wall that used to be known as the Wailing Wall. And that's at the base of the temple, right up against the walls that, of the temple, where the Jews pray. And I've been there. I had to wear a dumb, French fry container on my head because I didn't have a yarmulke. It's real embarrassing. But you have to have your head
I would
covered.
love to see pictures.
I don't have a picture of that, as it turns out. Oh darn. I'm so disappointed. So I mean and this actually is an interesting deal between the Muslim leadership and the Israeli police. The Israeli government are the ones who enforce the rules about the split. And it's not that Jews and Christians can't go to the top level of to the top of the Temple Mount. It's that we can't pray there. We can go and visit and be tourists. I didn't get to when I was in Jerusalem, but we were there for work, so that doesn't totally surprise me. But we can go. We just can't pray. But increasingly, especially things are getting very tense. The tensions between Israelis and Palestinians are at an all-time high. A Palestinian attempted to kill Yehud Glick, a prominent American-born advocate of Israel taking more control over the site. Earlier this week, there was a murder. 4 Jews were killed in a synagogue. And a Palestinian-associated group has taken credit for the attack. Because some Jewish leaders are wanting increased rights at the top of the Temple Mount. That they see it as, and there's some decent religious logic to this, right? That site is partly theirs. And as such, they should be able to pray there as well. And what that does is, especially given how high tensions are now, this turns into just a potential spark to set off years of bitterness. In a region that doesn't need a whole lot of sparks to set off years of bitterness on its best days. There's even some people, of course, as ever, Jews and Christians, calling for a third temple. To be built on the site.
Oh boy,
yeah. Now, right now, the cooler heads are kind of like, yeah, no, that might be nice, but nope. Try again. Try again. So, Stephen, how do you navigate this issue as our expert on foreign affairs?
Oh yeah, if I'm the expert on foreign affairs, then we have a big problem. This is an issue where, I don't want to call it a problem, but it's the situation that it is. It is the holiest site for 2 different.
Well, it's the first holiest for one and the third holiest for another.
Yeah, first holiest for one, third holiest for the other. It's still pretty high up there on the holy. Pretty darn holy on it.
Yeah.
And they just happen to be 2 religions where in that area they have the most clash.
Sure.
With Islam and Judaism being so directly tied to this political state of Israel, and the political states of West Bank and Gaza. And with all that combined in that is the one spot that, let's be honest, both places want to maintain control over, in a very religious sense, because then it says, oh, we have this spot and it's not yours. This is the holiest spot for you. This is the third holiest spot for you, and it's ours. Basically, that's like winning the religiosity game. And it's something that, until there is this disconnect between the political situation, the religious situation, nothing can be done, just because they're so intertwined that whatever one side does, whether it's give a little or hold a little, it's going to be seen as a slap in the face, no matter what the intention is behind it. And that's going to drive up tensions even more.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just, all of this seems ill-timed, right?
Mm-hmm.
As if it is to stoke these flames.
Yeah.
Because let's keep in mind that at least within Israel and Palestine, the Israelis are an organized modern military force against a ragtag band of rebels that often get described as terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
The mantra I would always say when we were over there is, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And George Washington would have been considered a terrorist in modern parlance by the British.
Yeah.
So I really don't like throwing around that term because it's so loaded. But they certainly create, commit guerrilla attacks on civilian targets, which is what we usually describe as terrorism. Okay, so look, yeah. No side's perfect here. But the rhetoric is asymmetrical. So the rhetoric and the force is asymmetrical. You have a highly organized military against a ragtag group of people.
Mm-hmm.
You have a highly centralized and controlling state against people who don't even have the rights to their own water. Mm-hmm. You have people that have moved into the land and have turned it into a modern liberal democracy. You have people that were kicked off of that land and have been living in refugee camps for 60 years.
Yeah.
This is not an argument against the existence of the state of Israel. That is just a modern political reality. Like it or lump it. I mean, just let that part go.
Israel exists.
Israel
has
exists.
a right to defend itself. Blah, 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 blah.
Right to defend itself. And civilians should not die in terrorist attacks. That is deplorable. The murders this week at the synagogue are absolutely deplorable. And, nothing is ever truly accomplished with that level of sick violence, especially during someone's religious ritual. Right? I mean, that's despicable on so many levels. So again, this isn't an argument to say that the Palestinians are perfect and the Israelis, they're the real bad guys here, right? That's certainly an argument the Palestinians want to make. And I think there's some merit to the argument, if only to say neither side is perfect. Mm-hmm. And if either side actually wants peace, the rhetoric that gets thrown around on both sides need to get backed off. Yeah. Right? So, needling the Muslims by wanting increased rights, the Dome of the Rock, bringing up a third temple, saying that you're going to respond firmly to the terrorist attacks, that's not what's going to talk about lasting peace. Again, these terrorist attacks are not just random acts of violence for fun. They are systemically fueled by the lack of options presented to Palestinians. Mm-hmm. It is an inappropriate pressure valve releasing, right? They are under a pressure cooker, and they are letting off steam by killing civilians, which is terrible. But the Israelis need to recognize that they have created this situation that is fueling this pressure cooker of terrorism.
Yeah.
By building a wall around the West Bank. By cutting off their access to water that's only through Israeli-controlled pipes. Mm-hmm. By creating Israeli-only highways through the West Bank. While continuing to build and, strengthen settlements in what is supposed to be, on international agreements, Palestinian land.
Yeah.
These actions are not the actions of a state that wants lasting peace with people that they value as fellow human beings. Mm-hmm. And that is leading to terrible acts on both sides.
Yeah.
But the Israelis are creating a systemic injustice that is fueling that because of the asymmetrical nature of the power dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a battle of equals.
No, it's not. And ultimately, what's going to happen? I mean, you're just going to have both nations just further entrenched in their sides, and nothing gets done. Also, there was an Indiegogo campaign to help raise money to build the third temple.
Oh my God! How much did it raise?
$104,000 when it closed.
That's not gonna build a model of the temple at the Creation Museum. Which I figured that's where you'd put it, right? At the Creationism. What is it? That has a dumb name, but the one where the Bill Nye debate was.
Yeah.
That one. The thing is, with the Temple Mount, I don't see the way forward. What do you do with that? Do you draw a line down the middle? Oh, you get this. Well, it doesn't help that there are Muslim sites on both the front, on both kind of the east and I can't remember if it's east and west or the south. But you can't split it in half because there's a mosque here and then the Dome of the Rock here. For the audio listeners, this is worthless. But there are two Muslim sites on opposite ends of the. So the Temple Mount's kind of like a football field. It's actually roughly that size, maybe a little bigger, but it's like a football field. So there are Muslim sites on both end zones, basically. So you can't just split it down the middle.
No, you can't.
And so maybe the answer is you cordon off specific areas for Jewish prayer, and still allow like they need permission. And the Dome of the Rock and the mosque, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, but it's very important, still function as they do now. That Jews make a commitment to not pray in those mosques, which might be viewed as offensive, but they're given their own prayer area rather than just up against the wall at the base, maybe on the Temple Mount itself. Maybe? Good luck brokering that deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to be brokered because, again, everyone's going to be
needling each other.
Yeah, needling each other.
So as ever, we're not going to sell this. I just thought it was worth bringing up, partly so I could rant about systemic injustice, and partly to make sure that we're clear that the terrorist attacks that they're committing against Israel are not furthering the process of peace.
No.
And are absolutely deplorable, and they are attacks on civilians. And anytime you treat every civilian as a combatant, you have crossed an ethical line that I don't want to hear. Right? There is a systemic injustice going on. I recognize that. And a lot of people do. And I understand that terrorism is a reaction to that. At the same time, that is an explanation. That is not an excuse. So yeah, on that note, we should probably get out of here. If you have any feedback, SYN boldly at nfear.org, facebook.com/assign your name project, or at SYN boldly on Twitter. And go in peace to love and serve the Lord and end fear by signing your name. Good night. Also, Russia moved warships into very close to Australia as part of the G20 summit.
Nice.
Smooth move, Putin. Smooth move.
This is what GoldenEye was about, right?
Basically.
Okay, good. I am invincible!